Now, when John wrote Revelations, Jerusalem had just been destroyed and everything else. He saw visions of what was happening now, but he wrote it in the language he knew. Okay. This is why a lot of the preterists believe a lot of the prophecies have already been fulfilled because of the language used. Mm-hmm. John was just using the language he knew, okay, of visions he saw in the future. There's the historic view, which is almost like a ticking time clock throughout time. Okay. You know, you can follow a lot of historic events, and like without question, you know, like these are, you know, like biblical prophecies. There's a futurist view where basically they believe Daniel's prophecy of 70 weeks ended when Christ rose. Okay. Then we went into basically the clock stopped and it became the time of the Gentiles. They believe in a pre-trib rapture, which personally I don't. Okay. So when the Gentiles are removed, the clock starts. And the last week, being 7 years, is the 7-year tribulation. Okay. That's a futurist view. Then you got the spiritualist view, where basically it really has nothing to do with us, earth. It's all between God, Satan, angels, good, bad. It's all on a spiritual level. And this is basically what the started the New Age movement, the spiritualist viewpoint. Okay.
Do you have, which one of those views do you tend to lean towards yourself?
As I said, you know, like the preterist one, it's the language that John used. I do not believe it's all happened in that time frame. There's so much evidence of historic you cannot deny once you get into it. And a lot of churches don't teach this. That's why a lot of people aren't on the historic movement. But, you know, like with the sun going dark, you know, like, there's so much evidence throughout time when you get right down to it. But there's also major aspects of the 7-year tribulation I also believe in as well, although not an exact 7-year tribulation. Okay. So I'm mostly historic, little bit future.
Okay. Now, when people go to your website, what are they going to find there? It's prophecytimes.com. Yeah. And again, the purpose of the website is for different people who have different views on Bible prophecy and end times to give their views. What are they going to find?
Anyone that truly wants to understand prophecy, it's not going to happen in 140 characters on Twitter. It just ain't going to happen. Okay. It takes research. But most people that truly want to research prophecy, they don't want preached at either. They want to make up their own mind. So even if you're new into prophecy, you know, like someone posts an article, you get different people making comments from their viewpoint. Mm-hmm. The only rule on my site is talk to others as you want them to talk to you. That's it. All viewpoints are welcome. At first, you might find it overwhelming. You don't know. But, you know, like after a month of reading this, reading that, all of a sudden, you start developing your own concept. And you know who to follow. There's many things, you know, like, okay, a lot of people believe, say, the mark of the beast. Mm-hmm. God puts a seal on your head. Some people believe it's a chip. Mm-hmm. It's actually, it's such an important thing because if you take it, the mark of the beast, you lose your salvation. Why should we be so stuck in our viewpoint? We're right, everyone else is wrong. The whole site is, but what if? I don't care which way you believe, but what if? What if you're wrong? If you've had the discussions, we don't try and change your mind. Mm-hmm. We try and open it up. Right. And even if you disagree, but all of a sudden, 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road, something starts happening in the world. All of a sudden, God can bring back that thought in your head that not on prophecy times might have something.
Now, I want to bring John into this in a second, but I have another quick question to ask you is, what would you say to the skeptic that just says, I mean, this is the type of thing I hear all the time, that they say, oh, people have been predicting the end times for as long as there's been human beings. So who's to say everybody thinks that they're living in the last days? So, you know, why now?
Look at it. Look at a history book. Any history book is filled with facts. And when there's gaps, they make it up. People hate spaces. When everyone is watching for someone to come back like Christ, they fill in the gaps. Harold Camping, honest Christian man. He really did not go out to do anything wrong, deceive the world. He honestly believed what he was talking.
We should explain for those who don't know who Harold Camping is, for those 1 or 2 people in the world, the man who predicted that the rapture was going to occur on May 21st, and he's reset the date to October 21st now.
I actually didn't really reset it. That was part of the original prophecy.
Yeah.
Whereas, like the saints would be raised, then you'd have months of basically the pouring out of the bowls, like all the revelation stuff, and then the end would come in October. So he's just put it all off to the final date.
Okay. Did he say Jesus returned spiritually or something like that? That's what I thought I heard he said. I thought he was going to return physically, but I was wrong. He returned spiritually.
I don't understand how that can happen. No. He either does or he doesn't. There's just no halfway point.
Well, I'll let John respond at this point. Just to specifically what Chris was saying, maybe make a comment about the mark of the beast and that. You probably wouldn't agree with that. Some people nowadays are saying that it's the microchip, that if you get it on your right hand or in your forehead.
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah.
And I almost invested in a company that does microchipping for animals.
Oh, yeah?
And I can assure you there's nobody's interested in getting microchipped. It's invasive. And they attempted to they have the technology, they could do it right now. But they just couldn't find anybody that wanted to actually do it. In fact, the CEO of the firm did it to himself to try to advocate it and try to promote it. But the company's since gone bankrupt because nobody was interested. So the mark of the beast, if anybody's interpreting it as being a chip-based thing, I don't buy that because the technology's here right now and nobody was interested in it.
Could it be, Chris, could there be a time that will come when it is not a choice that's given, it's imposed? You either take it or else.
Well, I don't believe it's an actual physical chip. I see no difference between the chip and the credit card, like in your wallet. It's just one of the many interpretations.
Okay. Some people thought it was the social insurance number. It was called the SIN number.
Oh, yeah. 3
digits, or 9 digits of...
And then with the credit cards, when credit cards basically replace checks, and it's a whole progression. It's just banking. That's all it is. Keep on losing my space.
Well, just give us, we only have a few minutes left, maybe give us your opinion then on Harold Camping and his prediction. Just what's your opinion on people setting dates for the rapture, things like that?
Date setting is wrong. The Bible even says, Jesus, the angels don't know the day or the hour. But you of the light will know by the signs. So to predict a day, hour is absolutely wrong. Grant Jeffrey, very well-respected evangelist, believes in the futures movement, predicted 1988 because Old Testament generation is 40 years. So that's 40 years after the establishment of Jerusalem was 1988. Christ coming back, he almost lost his own ministry on it. Camping, I believe where he went wrong was, you take a lot of the history books, counting the genealogy back. I date it back to sin. Most people do it from creation. I just do it from sin. Because Adam and Eve were originally meant to live forever, so they could have been in the garden for 100 years, 200 years. We don't know.
Okay.
The dates vary a little bit, but it's all early 6,000 plus something. The main one I use, I believe it's 6,015 years ago that sin entered. And that's gone through the genealogy. What the mistake Camping made was quite often there was 3, 4 prophets living at the same time. He counted them back to back in one long string, thus coming from the flood of Noah, 7,000 years, using genealogy back to back. So thus, when he predicted the date, that was the date, 7,000 years after the flood. He just added the genealogy wrong.
What do you think about his the prediction of October 21st, then you think anything's going to happen then?
We're in the time, many things are going to be happening in the next few years. I don't think we have another 20 years. I really don't. Whether it's this year, next year, 5 years, I don't know. 20 years, I think it'll be all done and over with. To predict a day and an hour, you're just wrong. Basically, you got to live your life. What I like to tell people is live your life spiritually as if you got seconds. Live your physical life as if you're going to live to be a 90-year-old grandma, grandpa.
Okay.
Learn the balance, and you got it. Don't go wacky either way. Don't totally deny it. Don't totally figure, I don't have to worry about my bills because they're not going to exist tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay, John, if you can give a brief response to that, and then I'm going to go back to Chris for closing comments, and then you'll get the last
Certainly.
one.
No, I think it's good advice that Chris gave at the end there. It is striking a balance. Now, there are going to be various people, Chris included, and you as well, and all of us. I always tell people when I'm having any type of discussion, there's 7 billion people on the planet. Everybody thinks they're right. Now, what makes it what constitutes the fact that you're right, or that Chris is right, or I'm right? Nothing. We often confuse our beliefs with truth, and we've had this discussion before. Yeah. And belief, in a lot of cases, has nothing to do with truth. And so my personal opinion is that the tribulation is not occurring, not happening. Now, is something possibly happening? Yes, because Chris alluded to before the spiritual view and the New Age view, and they talk about ascension. They talk about, but their view is enlightenment. And if I was leaning towards one or the other, I prefer enlightenment, because enlightenment and the ascension is all about love and harmony, whereas I find Christianity, and I was raised Roman Catholic, is about guilt, and it's about fear, and it's about sin, and it's about wrath. Even Chris makes that mention on his opening video, the wrath of God. And this benevolent being that is true love, I can control my temper. And you're going to tell me that God can't control his? I really just don't buy that.
Okay, Chris, maybe if you can give a quick 1-minute closing statement, or a little less than 1 minute. John will get the last word, and then I have a few.
It's not that God can't control his temper, but as things start happening, he's trying to call as many to him as possible. He's reaching out. If God does nothing but show love, we're just going to run and do our own life and not worry about him. Sometimes, like you've raised children. How many people at times, because a kid did something, gave him a smack on the rear end? In a way, that's what God's doing. Trying to straighten us out, bring them back onto him.
Okay, John?
Well, my own personal belief, and we talked about belief, is that the biggest, and it's said, that the greatest illusion of today is that you, Chris, are here, and that God is somewhere else, that there's a separateness. Basically, it's an awareness. Now, in the book of Thomas, and of course, Chris would not like to allude to that particular book, nor did the Catholic Church, because it wasn't good for business. But it speaks of Jesus saying, if they tell you that the kingdom is in the ocean, then the fish will precede you. If they tell you that the kingdom is in the sky, then the birds will precede you. I tell you now that the kingdom is within you and around you. And what Jesus was alluding to, I believe, he was an enlightened being, was that it's a state of mind. That the kingdom of God is an awareness, and that comes through meditation.
Okay. Thank you. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you both for being here. My guests have been John Sallie and Chris Marchment. That's all the time we have for this edition of Beyond Belief. I'd like to say thank you to a few people who have made this show possible. Beyond Belief producer Joey Rusi, TV Cogeco's production supervisor Melanie Miller, sound person extraordinaire Ken Sim, the lovely Lena Ross who answers your phone calls, Greg Estabrooks who anchors the TV Cogeco News, and the rest of the Cogeco staff who have been supportive of our little show here. A special thank you to my good friend Tim Salidas, who's provided us with this backdrop, and of course my beautiful wife Suzanne, whose patience and understanding have always allowed me to reach my dreams. I love you, Poopy Pants. God willing, we'll be back in November. Until next season, this is Randy Ruggles encouraging you one last time to take some time to ask yourself the big questions of life.